What are some common signs that a person is toxic? An old friend of mine, like 30 years, he knows my parents are somewhat hoarders, so he would, for a period, shoot me an email like let me help your parents sell stuff. Then before I could even reply and explain it was their decision, not mine, he'd show up, go through their stuff seeking out the most valuable item, then propose to sell it for 5% of value and he gets 50% of the take, so he gets 2.5% of the value, and we lose 97.5% of the value. And not only me, some other mutual friends have reported the same behavior. He wasn't even trying to help the situation. He was using it as an excuse to cherry pick the valuables and profit off of them. He never did sell anything since everybody put their foot down on him, and he at least has the ethics to respect that. That's not even a good strategy for scamming. It's absurdly low. You could sell for like 50% of value and still get a very fast turnover. Yay man. I agree. I think his tactic was to sell it at such a low price that anybody would buy it, even if they're not interested in buying. But it's not his loss. He just gets the commission. Really shitty move. Luckily he never sold anything. Or maybe he was just duping everyone, was going to sell it at close to value and just give you a measly 2.5%. Hey, do you know about adult children of hoarders? My dad was a hoarder and it helped me a lot. They use their friends as the butt of their jokes to impress people. The second someone confronts them about it, or jokes about them, they get upset. Yep, call them on anything and they claim they are the victim. Not a good sign. I am at the verge of cutting someone off because of this. There is a group of us who have kept in touch through a message thread for 4-5 years since college, and lately I realized there is a rotating tab of 7-8 jokes about me when I realize they don't make fun of each other that way. I am a bit of the joke and I don't need to stay in this circle. Get out of there. You're worth it and there are better people who won't do you that. I had a miserable second year of college because of the friends I was living with doing this. It felt like everything I did was wrong and any slip up would become fuel for further ridicule. When I confronted them on it, they told me it was self-fulfilling prophecy or some bullshit. They were all psych majors and I was some pet project. Been there. I would constantly dismiss stuff I had to say myself, stopped giving opinions, etc. because I was afraid of them jumping on me. I didn't realize how much damage my toxic former friends had done until I was in graduate school. I got feedback from professors about how I lacked confidence in seminars and presentations and cited stuff I said or did that was all stuff I had picked up so as not to be ridiculed by my ex-friends. Used to have a friend that would come up to you while you were clearly flirting with the women and then start putting you down, telling bad stories about you in hopes the women would stop flirting with you and move on to him. WTF is wrong with those people. Also used to have a friend that if he wasn't getting laid, he never did, then he'd make sure no one else was. Damn, all these comments remind me of one of my best friends whose shit I'm finally getting tired of. Thanks guys. I like this thread. Last week I hit the 1-year anniversary of breaking up with my best friend. Self-respect is fucking priceless. I highly recommend it. Half year since I did this. Hated myself for a long time that I let myself get treated this way. Not anymore. If you need to talk about something upsetting to you and the person makes it all about himself, not even trying to look like he cares. I always feel self-conscious if I bring up something that happened in the past that's similar or something involving me, even though I usually do it as a I had this similar issue and here's what seemed to help what ended up happening. because I'm worried it will come across as taking about myself, and not just making a short relative allusion to a similar event. I always bring it right back to them, but it still is a thing of not wanting to be mistaken in that moment. I think the best way to go about sharing your relevant experience is to say, oh yeah, I had a similar thing happen to me, it sucks, or it's amazing in the case of a good thing. Don't get into details of what happened to you and how you handled it unless and until they ask. I generally do how something was handled when the person is struggling to know what to do. If they're just talking about it, that's one thing. But when they are wanting help, I tend to offer something that worked previously. I know what you mean, but I don't think you understand how much energy it took for me to read this. Don't even talk to me about lack of energy. Just this morning my friend was telling me about how a friend died or something, and I had to sit there telling him that it's okay because he's still got me. Exhausting. Here is my personal list of red flags. Someone is always hurting them. It's never the same person. It's never their fault. They cannot apologize. You are always putting out fires for them with mutual friends. They get upset when you're upset at them. They act like that is worse than what they did in the first place. They lie about everything. Most of the time it's about others or things they have done. You always have to raise their spirits, but they cannot return the favor. I teach a program about healthy and unhealthy relationships in public schools, and we teach about manipulators. The first sign is their motive. When they seem to want something more than they value their relationship with you, tell them no and see how they react. Good friends respect boundaries. Toxic people push until they get what they want. Another warning sign is control. If they generally are a control freak, again look at their motives. Secrecy and building a false sense of trust are two more. Manipulators love to isolate people from friends and family so that they don't have anyone who can see the relationship from the outside and stop it, and they will use bribery and flattery to win someone over faster than a relationship should move, so they can work less to get what they want. All relationships should be built on time, trust, and permission, and manipulators hate this process because it's not the relationship that they care about. Among flattery and bribery they use other tactics such as 1. Throwing fits to persuade your future behavior to avoid similar outbursts. 2. Intimidation, which could be threats of anything from blackmail to violence. 3. Repetition, because they don't take no for an answer. 4. Guilt tripping. You love me or you're my friend, so you have to do this thing for me. Hell no, I don't. You don't know how love works. 5. Insecurity, whether they put themselves down to make you feel empathy for them or put you down to make you lose confidence and feel trapped in the relationship. An insecure target is a person who will not stand up for themselves and maintain strong boundaries. 6. Accusations, to put the victim on the defense and make them feel like they have to work off a debt to earn the manipulator's trust. Typically false accusations. If someone legitimately wrongs you, you don't owe them automatic trust because of the time you both have in the relationship. 7. Jealousy, possessiveness. The manipulator is so jealous that they try to control the target in an unhealthy way. This one is tricky because not all boundaries are valid. Toxic people use boundaries as a means of control, and then play the victim role when their boundaries are crossed or not respected. You superfantime. He cited the example of forcing someone to cut off people or delete Facebook friends because it's crossing their boundaries. It goes back to what I said about control. Besides teaching the program, I grew up in an abusive home and saw a lot of this firsthand. Plus, I firmly believe everyone has used this stuff at some point because it's learned behavior and too subtle to be labeled as abuse. Little kids crying or asking for something repeatedly is a more innocent form of manipulation, and we've all done something similar. I know that I didn't, still do, and have to catch myself and remind myself that I teach that this stuff isn't healthy. So don't beat yourself up if you see yourself in any of what I said, but know that you can work toward changing. My tips on how to change if you think this is you, please see edit 5. 1. Knowledge is power. Now that you know this stuff and recognize it, I think that's half the battle. You'll start to have a trigger go off in your gut when you see it happening now in you or others. Listen to that and admit your flaws. Apologize to people. Correct yourself. That's what I try to do if I catch myself in the act. Plus, read up on it. I try to provide some sources, but just look for books on healthy relationships. 2. Mentor. Find someone you know who doesn't do this stuff. Tell them you think you are doing it, and then ask them for tips and to keep an eye on you. Mentors are preferably older and more mature, but it could be anyone. If it's serious enough, talk to a therapist, maybe even just a pastor or parent. Someone who can give you objective advice and will truly listen to you. 3. Accountability. Find a good friend and tell them about your struggle and that you think you may do this stuff, and have them keep you in check. Giving someone permission to call you out will make people feel much more comfortable helping you. 4. Golden rule. It may be cliche, but when examining your actions, consider how you would feel if you were on the receiving end. Are you a person that you would want to hang out with? That's all I can think of for now. Hopefully this helps. Edit 1. Format. Edit 2. Added to number 6 to make it more accurate. Next edit will be to add in sources for further reading, which I've been asked for a ton. Edit 3. Resources. I can't find a ton of good stuff because I think most general abuse resources don't cover manipulation specifically. One site that is more abuse focused that we give to kids is LaVisRespect.org. Home. LaVisRespect webpage. I skimmed it, and if you check out the definitions and examples of emotional abuse, there might be some helpful stuff there. A book I would recommend is How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk. The program I teach is called Go for the Gold, and it is written by our company, as well as the handbook we give to students. I called my boss and told her about this thread blowing up, and she said we may be able to provide a way to actually buy a book if anyone is interested. It's not something we sell currently, we just give them to students in our classes. Our website is actually in the works, but once it's up I could come back and post a link. We plan on doing podcasts or something that dives deeper into the content. I am trying to respond to everyone as best I can, so sorry if I haven't gotten to you yet. Thanks for all of the discussion and encouragement. Edit 4. Added number 7. Thanks to a great comment from you, Superfantime. I'm a Reddit noob, and even though I looked at formatting help, I don't know how to link the username, so if I can do that, then PM me. Edit 5. A lot of people asked for help on starting to change if they see these behaviors in themselves. I added a section for that. Also, I just teach this program and it was taught to me. I don't even have masters and I'm not an expert in this stuff. I do have a lot of experience with it personally and have thought a lot about it while teaching it to high schoolers the past 4 years. I am really humbled by all of the comments and questions, and I'm doing my best to answer everyone. But just know that I am not the final authority on this stuff. Edit 6. Another resource suggested by you, Rangoinem. Characteristics of Narcissistic Mothers webpage. I skimmed it and it's very specifically about moms, but it looks like it has a ton of info. Edit 7. U Hohenheim of Life recommended 2 books and the Wikipedia page based on them for additional resources. Psychological Manipulation. Wikipedia webpage. In Sheep's Clothing. Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People by Dr. George K. Simon PhD. Who's Pulling Your Strings? How to Break the Cycle of Manipulation and Regain Control of Your Life by Harriet Breaker. I'm a nurse, and if a patient says to me, "You are the only good nice nurse I have had," I immediately go into full alert anti-manipulation mode. Alarm bells big time. Because I know the guilt tripping is coming. Grew up in an abusive home too, which pretty much gives you a supernatural sixth sense when it comes to bullshit. I have a great aunt who is in a home right now. This is exactly how she behaves. She's playing mind games with the staff, but they are chalking up her behavior to senility. She's not actually senile, but she's trying to cause as much drama as possible because she's trying to get out of the home. And the family knows this. One example. She has been ill for the last little while, and would not let the home call for a doctor without her consent. The home cannot call for a doctor unless they believe her condition is serious. When my father went to visit her recently, she told him that she's been sick for ages and the home wouldn't call for a doctor, in spite of her begging. Now, we know that this is not true. This is something that we know for a fact isn't true. She's just trying to make the home look bad to guilt the family into taking her out. And then when she is faced with the evidence that proves that she is lying, rather than owning up to her shenanigans and mind games, she will play the silly old woman card and back down. She's played this card so many times now that the home is convinced that she's going full-blown senile. The truth is that she keeps shooting herself in the foot, and she's going to cripple herself doing it. For those of you who have gotten this far, she has some fairly severe physical disabilities and she's 94. She has been living at home with visit 3 times daily style and home care, but this is no longer suitable for a number of reasons. She can no longer look after herself, and she has been claiming for some time that she is lonely, depressed, and doesn't want to live alone anymore. What she actually wants is for family to move in with her, but this is completely impossible. So, the family thought that putting her into a home would be a good option. She would get the care that she needed, she would have other people to talk to round the clock, etc. It seemed like an ideal solution. So, with her reluctant consent, she has been signed into a home for respite care, for a period of 1 month. I have been to the home, and honestly, I would move in, if I could. It seems great, clean, spacious, friendly staff. The guests' inhabitants seem talkative and friendly, but it wasn't what she wanted. It wasn't family moving in with her. So she has been trying to weasel, and twist things ever since. It's been putting a hell of a lot of stress on my father, because he's bending over backwards to try to work something out. But it's very likely that the doctors at the home will have her committed on account of her playing mind games, and trying to fob off her malicious actions and sabotage as anything less than what they are. Sorry to rant, but this has been weighing on my mind a lot recently. Edit. Also, the home eventually called for a doctor with my father's consent. It turns out that she has a fairly serious condition which may lead to heart failure. So it's a good thing that they did. If she had gotten her way, blah. Self-sabotage. Play stupid games. Win stupid prizes. You've just given me a bigger perspective on something I've noticed my whole life. Bullies don't usually come straight out of nowhere. They probe and detect potential victims with what I tend to call the peck. They peck at someone using some small slight or transgression that has an element of plausible deniability and allows them to hit you with impunity. If you react to counter this, then they attempt to frame you as overreacting, unreasonable or paranoid. One great example of this behavior is "it was only a joke, bro," which is a perfect instance of what you are saying in point 1. They will later make another peck to see if you still react in the same way. They will keep doing this until you eventually stop reacting. This is similar to what you were saying in point 3. Because they know what they want, and they will go to great lengths to get it. Then they peck harder, knowing that you won't react to what they are doing. The plausible deniability becomes progressively less, but the hardness of the pecks becomes progressively more. Eventually, they're flushing your head in a toilet and you don't even know why you're putting up with it. As I've gotten older, I've become more and more astute at looking for pecks. I think it's great that you're teaching kids about this. Kids don't get enough education about relationships and emotions. Compulsive lying, refusing to take no for an answer, excessive dependency, disregard for what's important to others in favor of what's important to them. Refusing to take no for an answer, that's a huge red flag that I wish I had acknowledged a year AGP. When they are only happy when they can make the people around them miserable. Also, when they ask you a question, knowing the answer they want to hear, I give them an honest answer and they flip out. Another, they don't hear what you actually say but put some negative spin on it, effectively putting words in your mouth that you actually didn't say. In all of these examples I am thinking about two people I know and despise. Another, they don't hear what you actually say but put some negative spin on it, effectively putting words in your mouth that you actually didn't say. Just be careful with this one. Almost everyone is guilty of doing this, especially when A, they don't like someone initially, and B, it's a heated moment. Doing this doesn't instantly mean hey you're a toxic douche who should have no friends. It's not a good thing to do, but it's simultaneously not a surefire sign of someone just being a toxic person overall. Probably needs to be paired with some other toxic behaviors before this can actually be labeled correctly as a symptom. Every time you try to do something fun, they make it not that way. I hate so much about the things that people like that choose to be. Self-absorption. Inflated sense of self-importance. Selfish. Greedy. A master manipulator. Lies about everything, etc. My mom was like this, so I know this shit firsthand. Had this far too long in my life. Sucks so much energy. Still does. All the bad things in the world happens to them, but it's never their fault. This is so fucking true. I dated this girl for a few months and she always had a reason why she couldn't hold a job, or why shit was always happening to her. It was never her fault though. I see we have similar tastes in significant others. I myself once dated a 1988 vintage, white on the nose, cool, shade notes of blame and excuses, a spicy charisma at the head but then bland absence of ambition under the surface. Finishes early and abruptly, lingering notes of fishiness. Pairs best with the crackers you're having for dinner because someone spent all the grocery money on concert tickets. Served chilled, like the growing resentment in your heart. That's like too well written. It's at the point where I have to actually think to understand it. Lol. I had a friend like this, and as his friends one by one became successful he blamed circumstances, not effort or attitude. When I began to recover from a brutal firing and slowly started to piece my life back together, he complained how sanctimonious I had become. He finally cut me out of his life because I was toxic to him. The bummer for him was that he was very smart and had some incredibly successful friends, but whenever they'd try to help he'd get very angry and resentful towards them. He turned away any sort of advice that required he listen or change anything about himself. To be fair though, he had an abusive father, and I can imagine how surviving that puts you on the defensive. It's very hard for some people to accept help from others. They don't want to appear needy or mooching or desperate. They lock themselves into a me versus the world mindset. We are societal creatures and it's stupid to say you don't need people to help you in life. We all do. Reminds me of this girl I used to be friends with. She had issues with a ridiculous number of people, but was always the victim in her own mind. And then, eventually, I became another one of the people that victimized her. Funny thing is, years later, I met some of the people that were supposedly awful to her, and they're really nice. Yep, when someone constantly talks bad about pretty much everyone they've ever known, it's only a matter of time before they'll talk like that about you too. But it can be very hard to see when they make you feel like you're the best thing that has ever happened to them. That's something that got me trapped for a bit. I was always a friend's person to vent about all the people in the world who've wronged them. And I was scared that if I called them out in things I'd be another story for someone else to vent to. But now I don't really mind. Yep, I have a friend who wonders why everyone leaves them and feels like they are victimized constantly. Of course, one day I have enough of their bullshit, call them on it, and all of a sudden, I'm victimizing them too. Somehow these people always have good intentions while everyone else has bad intentions and is out to get them. They don't even have to be a bad person, just bad for you. To me it when seeing them causes you more stress than happiness. I think being toxic has more nuance than that. Someone close to you going through depression can stress you out but not be toxic. Another example. Anyone who's been in an average long-term relationship knows that rough patches are unavoidable. Your partner stressing you out more than makes you happy in recent months doesn't mean he/she is toxic. Toxic and non-toxic people alike tend to antagonize others who make them feel negative emotions. Paired with the generalization of stress happiness equals toxic, can cause one to misdiagnose the situation and others. I dated someone that once told me normal relationships don't have rough patches. So when we inevitably did have some rough patches he completely ignored me until I wouldn't bug him about it anymore. After a while nothing got fixed and these rough patches built up and got worse because there was no communication coming from his side, and every time I tried to have talks with him about anything he would say I was just being crazy. At the time I was thinking maybe I would one day find a way to get through to him that couples do have problems sometimes and that you need to talk through it instead of ignore them even if you think they're stupid. He eventually dumped me because he said he started to feel like he was married and he didn't like it. In his world you were the toxic partner. I'm not trying to make his behavior acceptable, but we get hung up on who to stick the label on. Cat food is toxic to dogs. Dog food is toxic to cats. There might be a perfect woman for him out there who doesn't feel deeper feelings than hungry, and that relationship could last forever without turning toxic. Can be summed up with the narcissist's prayer. That didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. Alternatively, that definitely happened. And it was terrible. And it was a huge deal. And it was your his her their fault. And you he she they definitely meant it as an attack on me someone. And I definitely didn't deserve it. I wonder if there's just a very specific part of their brain that's shaped wrong for the very essence of the complex disorder to be so succinctly summarized like that. My mother is a straight up narcissist and I've spent a lot of time wondering what it is that makes her that way, why she is so shitty. The only conclusion that I've ever been able to come to is that she is just mentally incapable of recognizing when things are her fault. incapable of apologizing and being sincere, incapable of being nice or normal like most human beings. There is just something truly fundamentally screwed up in her brain that makes her a narcissist. I think that's why it's still very difficult to treat people with true personality disorders like NPD. There's just something that is fundamentally wrong with their brain and its chemistry that makes them that way. Another big reason why they're so difficult to treat is that people with certain personality disorders are unlikely to seek help. The nature of these disorders often make it difficult for people to realize that they have a problem and need to change. The best thing I ever did for myself was stop denying my BPD, recognize that my shitty life wasn't anyone else's fault, and go to DBT and work my ass off to change my shitty beliefs and behavior. Personality disorders can be treated, but only if the person wants to change and is willing to put in the work, and sadly, many people can't seem to get past that first step. I'm not cured or anything. My emotions still get way too intense over little things, but I no longer try to commit suicide because my boyfriend ate all the dumplings, so I call that a win. Man, good for you on recognizing your BPD. My sister is 45 and is convinced that she's perfectly sane and that she could do no wrong and doesn't go to therapy for her BPD. She continues to drag my family members into her illness and no one says anything because we're all terrified to confront her on her toxic behavior. Even if we did confront her, it would be her choice to decide to get help. Unfortunately, she doesn't think she needs help and that we're all the crazy ones. I go to therapy 4 days a week for my anxiety and depression and just suggested the idea that she should go and she immediately said therapy doesn't work. I'm really glad you believe in therapy. If your sister refuses to get help, it's time to cut her off. Your health is just as important. Ugh, this is my friend. For the most part, she's not excessively or dangerously toxic, but she complains about everything and it's always worse than it is, and I'm afraid she's going to become toxic over time. Can't find parking at school on her birthday. Worst birthday ever. Realized she had to pay to play bingo at an anime convention. $1 per card. Super disappointed. Never again. Went to Vegas for her birthday and then proceeded to say no to everything the others wanted to do. Vegas sucked. She's already having trouble holding down a job. She quit the last job she had at a warehouse after a couple weeks because her feet hurt. Oh man. If this person can make a Vegas trip miserable, they just don't know how to have a good time. You know, part of me read that and said, yeah, I might be kind of narcissistic. And then I said, well, that's not true, I only act that way because, insert excuses. Damn, I'm actually a bit of a narcissist. Always negative. Even when giving a compliment, it has to have a little negative on it. They continue to make personal jokes at your expense after you have clearly and directly asked them to stop. Their justification is it's just a joke, bro, or you never said anything before. When you have to apologize for everything even if you haven't done anything really. Also, if they are always saying bad things about you but declare that these things are just jokes and you make a joke about them one time and they are mad af. They're so passive aggressive that it's common knowledge that they're passive aggressive to the point you expect shit to happen. The most toxic friendship of my life ended abruptly when I realized she was not on my side. She did lots of things to illustrate that over the years, but I always could come up with a way to excuse her behavior. She was literally portraying herself to my other friends as someone who knew me better and longer and was there for the authority on me, and then telling them I was awful. She did that to a boy I liked who she liked too. So I excused it cause she was trying to win. But she continued to shit-talk me to him after she got engaged to someone else. It all came down in the end to a conversation. She described me to me, and she very simply did not believe in me. She thought very little of me, and ended this insulting portrait with, "But I love you unconditionally and I will always love you." I just understood then finally that she was breaking me, that she was poisoning my own view of myself. She was wrecking my reputation, and she knew me for so long that she ought to have known me better. That if in all those years that's all she got, she was never going to know me and was only going to hang around making my life worse. I ran the fuck away and never looked back. They step right over a boundary you've just laid down. No matter how simple. I can't eat raisins. Go on. These are delicious. You have to eat them. Eat them. I'll be so sad if you won't eat these things you can't eat. They always need people emotionally there for them, but they become distant the second someone has emotional needs in return. I do this a lot. It's not the fact that I don't want to help, it's the fact that I don't know how to help. I think to myself, wow, this person has actual bad things happening to them compared to my problems. If I can't even handle dumb shit by myself, how am I going to help someone who really needs it? Even if I do text talk to them about it, I usually don't say anything that other family and friends haven't said already, which makes me feel like I can help even less, which causes me to talk to them less. Rinse and repeat until it's been since Christmas that I've texted people and now I don't even know what to do about it, let alone what to say to them. That is completely normal, and unless you're doing this to someone who has reason to depend on you, a partner, a child, etc., then it's totally reasonable. I'll give you an example of the toxic behavior we're describing. I had a friend who demanded all of my time and attention. Nothing I ever said or did was enough, but if I so much as didn't pick up the phone when he called, I got a lecture about how all he wanted was for someone to be there for him. I said all the right things, and when he told I wasn't, I just stopped talking. Then one day when he was at my house, I got a phone call from my cousin saying that my mom had just had a heart attack. Her health hadn't been good for a while and this wasn't her first heart attack, but this one sounded bad. When I hung up the phone and turned back to my friend, the literal first words out of his mouth were, "If you need to be comforted, I can't do that for you." The really fucked up part was that I accepted that answer, left my own bedroom, and cried in my bathroom instead so I wouldn't bother him. So yeah, you're probably fine. They only talk about themselves and they can talk about nothing else. They will tell you stories how great they are and the amazing, but fabricated, feats they have done. Boring. The toxic people I have encountered never own up to their mistakes and always blame other people. They only care about themselves and clearly don't listen or care when you share with them during a conversation. The conversation must always revolve around them. They constantly complain, are never positive and thrive on drama in their lives. Plus you feel exhausted around them or extremely uncomfortable because you're always walking on eggshells wondering if they are going to make a big deal over the smallest thing. When you look at everything through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. I once had an ex who admitted to sabotaging one of my previous relationships because she was jealous. I took some time off from my phone to just play video games and relax. I didn't want to argue with her. A few hours later, she was cutting her wrists. I couldn't even take a few hours to relax before she was trying to make herself the victim. As humans, when someone is broken, we have a desire to fix them, and that's wonderful. But when fixing them is clearly breaking you, you have to step back, no matter how much that person needs you. Not a psychologist, but that sounds like borderline personality disorder. The way they treat waitstaff and customer service people, It's one thing to have a bad day, or if the person who's working is being a dick to you, but treating people like that who have to sit back and take it because they get paid to do so is pretty slimy. Self-absorbed. Everything they do for other people feels fake and or like they are doing you a favor that they want you to pay back. People who won't take responsibility for their actions and are never wrong. If they are bitching about their other friends to you, they're probably bitching about you to their other friends. I was just describing a toxic woman I know to somebody yesterday, and told them that in any positive situation, she can find a negative. Some of the examples I gave were, wow, it's sunny today yeah, but it's supposed to rain tomorrow. Hey, that thing you were waiting for just got here. 15 minutes late. As usual, it's all little stuff, but it really adds up after a while. If you realize you're a worse person around them, don't get things done, become an ass, become depressed or anxious, end up regretting things you've done with them like drinking too much, etc. They're probably toxic to you. Had a roommate I really enjoyed living with, but realized she was toxic when moved out and saw that her attitude off C's get degrees really impacted my own motivation and brought my own grades down as well, as compared to when I lived with my overachiever best friend and got straight A's. She wasn't a bad person at all, it was just that her attitude influenced me in a negative way. They talk more about what they hate dislike rather than what they love like. Saying or doing something that makes you upset and calling you sensitive or any other insult for being upset is a good, simple first sign. If you're really curious or worried that someone may be toxic, get on YouTube and watch videos about gaslighting and narcissistic abuse. It will open your eyes to a bunch of toxic behaviors. My favorite YouTuber regarding this issue is Narcissism Survivor. That you feel worse rather than recharged after you've seen them, when the thought of seeing them makes you anxious or uncomfortable. When they only talk to you when they have problems. When they seem to have a cloud of drama surrounding them at all times. My mom encouraged me to kill myself in a fit of rage yesterday. Does that count as toxic? I am 25, work 40 to 50 hours per week and am disabled. They put other people down to elevate themselves. The most obvious sign for me is that they won't offer to help anyone. They may, begrudgingly, do something they view as an obligation. However, will never actively offer help to those around them. Creating, reading and or studying threads on Askreddit that list red flags so they can hide their personality better. They quickly judge people without wanting to understand the original intent. In other words, they put more energy into what happened than why it happened. Fucking your girlfriend after brainwashing her against you is a pretty sure sign-emo. You feel aggravated by everything they say. They brag in a way that makes you feel they are criticizing you. They always talk shit about what's basic and what's legit, and you feel like your stuff is being called basic. They talk to you only about their own interests and won't be sidetracked. Your role is to listen, not to offer a point of view. Like, shut up, I'm talking to you. They always flake. Sometimes they don't even tell you, they just don't show up. They ask you who else will be there, and sound like you have to work to sell them your party trip restaurant plans. There is drama. You talk to them, and then you get an angry call from someone that you said this or that. You can't just be yourself. They will find fault in anything you do. Disclosing extremely personal or intimate information about themselves or others straight away. Chances are they want your approval so badly they will bear any secret. The minute that they sense disapproval, however slight or imagined, They will turn on you and any information they have on you will be used in similar attempts to curry favor with future victims. They're terrified of dirt and psychics. Your attempts to poison them prove futile. You find TM06 hidden away in their house. If their life seems to have a hard reset every few months or years where they burn every bridge, change jobs, have a completely new set of friends, move to a new place, are in a different relationship, etc. And of course, they never maintain connections or talk to all their old friends and family, and won't give you a straight answer as to why. That is a huge warning that someone is highly unstable and probably severely pisses off everyone they know. Reminds me of my depressed friends. They're not toxic, just trying to survive. Hope you guys are doing well. Depressed former friend to men checking in. I frequently think about reconnecting with people and it makes me insanely anxious. Fortunately I do still have some close friends, although all are far away. But I miss my old friends and the me that I thought they could like. Edit. Seems like this has resonated with a lot of people. It's nice to remember that I'm not the only person who feels this way. Thanks y'all. I feel you there. Absence after the depression lifts. I can't help but feel like it's my fault. AMD I was a shitty person and maybe they're better off without me. And I don't want to put them through reconnecting just to have it happen again next time it hits. Exactly this. And it only feels worse to read the root comment of this thread and to think that people hold my mental health against me as some kind of toxic behavior when all I'm trying to do is keep it together. It's easier to mentally write a person off as toxic than to help them overcome their struggles with mental illness. Thanks for standing up for us. I've disappeared and reappeared a couple of times in certain hobbies and communities. Sometimes I just want to get away from the drama and the stress. I lose a lot of friends in the process I guess, but that's fine I think. My closest friends just take me disappearing every few years or months my thing and I don't get negative comments for doing it. Exactly. Lacking interpersonal skills isn't equivalent to being toxic. Perhaps they enjoy their solitary life or perhaps need the change. Good luck all my depressed butts. That's me basically, but I didn't piss people off. I hope I didn't. I'm just really bad at maintaining connections. I'm always like, I should call Aunt Professor old friend for their birthday. Oops, it's past midnight. Never mind. Call it phone anxiety. I don't know how to, but I am so terrible at this. And many of those people would be so happy to know how I'm doing. Now I feel bad again. When they go out of their way to identify as a member of some sort of group. In this day and age, simply disagreeing with your ideology qualifies for most people.